Okay, hey everybody. Uh, got another one going today, and it's going to be awesome. Uh, I wasn't around for the original run of this, but I watched the reruns in the 80s. This is Superboy, young Clark Kent, and I'm going to invite a few people here while I'm setting up. Let everybody know we're on, and then I'm going to do a quick share here. Hey, George, just setting up, man. Bear with me just a second. I'm doing a share for the live so that everybody will be able to see it over on the page. And it's taking forever. Yeah, I didn't get to see this in the original showing, but I did get to see it in syndication in the 80s, and I loved this cartoon. It was absolutely one of my favorites. Hi, Melinda. Thanks for coming on. I appreciate it. We've got a little bit of crypto down here in the bottom, and I'm going to knock this out pretty quick. And if I'm able to get it done in like record speed, I'm going to see about possibly coloring it. I don't know. We'll see how that goes in a minute. I just finished up a couple of projects this morning, and I'm really excited about it. And it's going to give me a lot more free time to get back to producing my own books. And it's also going to give me the free time to start coloring these again daily. I am so excited about it because it's something I got away from for a while, where I was doing these in batches instead. And, I was doing the daily penciling and whatnot, and then I was doing the batches, and I really hated that. Um, Now I'm going to be able to get back to the original process of where I would draw it, and then a couple hours later I would have it back up and finished for you guys and posted. And that is my daily process. And I normally I just get to ink them, and one day I'll ink them, and the next day I'll color them and do them in small batches, so that I don't fall behind during the week. But uh, now that the page is up and a couple of things are moving on, I'm going to be able to do that again and get right back into it. So I'm all excited about that. Now I've got the 50s style swoosh, the last rendition of it. Um, I always love doing that right there. And some people say it looks like Todd McFarlane. Some people, eh, you know, whatever. Um, I don't think it's as abstract as Todd's, but it is what it is. Um, I have fun drawing this kid, and I've drawn him many, many times over the years. I don't like the modern version as much as I do this one. Um, when it comes to Superman, he's kind of like Captain America. He's just a classic, and I really don't like to mess around with him too much because it gets weird for me. There's a nostalgia and a patriotism to this character that just doesn't resonate with a lot of the others. Everybody's like, well, don't change Batman. And I'm just like, yeah, leave Superman alone. You know, granted, I did like the Man of Steel. I did enjoy it. And when I was a little kid, man, I used to just dig this thing. And then when the Super Friends came along, oh, wow. Yeah, it just blew me away. Um, Now, granted, like I said, I didn't get to see. I was an 80s kid, I was born in the late 70s. And when I was into cartoons, as it was, um, it was the late 70s, early 80s stuff. Um, this one used to come on where I lived in Texas. This one used to come on uh, right after what was it, Banana Splits. So I know I'm dating myself here because a lot of people are like, Banana what? So yeah. And then of course the Hanna-Barbera stuff would come on then, and then you'd have the classic 80 cartoons from Filmation. You'd have G.I. Joe, Transformers, He-Man and She-Ra, and all that mess come on. And Voltron and all those other great cartoons that would come on. But just in case you're new to this, no, Voltron was not made by Netflix. However, I do like that incarnation, but it wasn't originated by Netflix. It was actually a Japanese cartoon that came to America. Just like Gatchaman became G-Force and a couple of others out there that everybody knows that were transitionals. Robotech was a big one. Battleships of the Galaxy kind of stuff. All that stuff was just it was previously in existence. So, you guys are getting it as a new generation. For younger people that follow me, which I appreciate you being there. Make sure you have your mom and dad's permission, please. As with all my students, you guys know this, plain and simple. Yeah, I think he's going to come along. What I'm worried about is this crypto down here. I'm not big on doing portraits of animals. I mean, I draw animals in comics and stuff all the time, but I still have a thing about it, where I'm not really comfortable with it. It is a weak spot for me. You mean you have a weak spot? Yes, I do. Yes. I don't like making animals look cartoony. And with my animated style, I have to be very careful because it's a fine line between semi-realism for that to give it just enough pop versus the other. So, it is what it is. Hey, Matt, thanks for coming on, man. Let's see here. The Superboy has a higher collar than Superman because he's smaller in the same suit. Believe it or not. The suit stretches out to meet him as he grows, and because he was wrapped in it as a baby. And that's what it actually formed a bodysuit that made, in the comics, it made a bodysuit that kept him insulated while he adapted to Earth's atmosphere and breathing and all that stuff when he was a kid. And that's how they explained him, doing that. And then in Man of Steel, when he choked up on the Kryptonian spaceship and choked up and fell out and whatnot, they explained that because of the fact that he was Kryptonian and needed to get it used to acclimating to a Kryptonian atmosphere. So that's why they said he wheezed and coughed and all that. It's because he was getting used to the atmosphere of Earth, which was a really cool scientific way to play it off. I really enjoyed that because of the fact that they played it off really, 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 really deep. Now I'm going to shadow this in for this shoulder because I'm going to make the cape give an edge to the shoulder over here. That way it doesn't look like the cape's going way down his chest and stuff and all awkward. Hey man, you drew your cape off. But yeah, that's the extension of that. That's just a shadow back there. Go ahead and pop in Crypto's ear here. A lot of people freak out over drawing animals. It is a unique process, and if you don't practice it, you'll pay for it big time. Which in this case, I've drawn Crypto many times, and I've drawn characters like Scooby-Doo and whatnot over the years, so it doesn't really bother me. I just draw whatever comes to mind for that incarnation of the time. Like this one, he's going to have really heavy brows because that's the way they draw him now. And I'm not sure what dog breed he is as much as the fact that he is a dog. I mean, at one point, DC said he was a terrier, which I don't understand that because it's like, what terrier? If you know these animals, it's like, what kind of terrier? We know we know what Batman's dog Kane is. You know, he was, and a couple of the others that came along later. He was a Great Dane, and one of them was a Doberman, and then he had another one that was oh goodness, I think it was a German Shepherd. I think it was a German Shepherd. It died when oh, who was it? I think it was the Riddler that got into the Batcave back in the 70s and killed that dog. In the 70s, Batman didn't really care about what they did. He was just a guard dog for Batman's Batcave, and off he went. You know, he was gone. I mean, literally, like, poof. So I'm going to put in a couple of whiskers in there. Draw that jawline right there. And Crypto's always light and easy going, so be sure not to make him into Frankenmutt. You know what I mean? Some people freak out about that, and it's just like, he's supposed to be rough and tough and super dog, and it's just, no. Crypto was supposed to be very calm, very collected, and an easygoing partner for Superboy. Especially in the 60s when this cartoon came out and the comic really took off, because they didn't allow all that. It was all rated, you know. So it was all highly rated as, you know, being super positive and super sensitive and all that. So, but anyway, we're going to give Crypto some eyeballs. And he has dark eyes, so I'm going to go this route and just black them out and make them hopefully pop off and not look bug-eyed. Because like I said, I always get nervous around drawing animals like this because I'm not used to it. And I've probably drawn this guy, I don't know, maybe 50, 60 times. So, but my modern incarnation, my modern style is a little different. So, bear with me. But anyway, we're going to knock him out, and he is what he is. So, yay. We're going to get the Superman icon in here, which is a little different on Superboy. It's a little slimmer because he's a little leaner. It's like the suit grows with him. It's strange. It's like the suit adapts as he grows into it. I found that a little awkward. I'm going to go ahead and scratch out that nose because it's black, so we're not going to have any major highlights on it. Just up on top, it'll be gray. And on the side, give it a little more lip, because this is a sketch card. Like I said, I want to knock this out. But, yeah, there he is. He's coming along. I'm giving him the classic Hornshoe S. A lot of people don't like this one, but I do. So that's what I'm going to do with it. Like I said, a little nostalgic about this character, so I like to make that move on. Now what I'm going to do is pop this up and raise this S a little bit. Okay, there we go. I love doing this one for kids because whenever Superboy pops up, you know, everybody's just like, it's Superman! And I'm like, no, it's not. Well, it looks like Superman. Why aren't you drawing Superman? It's Superboy. You mean Superman was a boy? That's the natural progression. I love working with kids. That's awesome. Just to Everything's an adventure. So, everything's got vitality to it. Everything's an adventure. So now, when this character came out, they had it was in the early '60s. Like I keep reiterating that. You said that already. Uh, Whenever he came out in the '60s as a cartoon, that was when everybody had everything in their, pardon the pun, everything in their dog in animation. So because that was the Hanna-Barbera days, the boom from Hanna-Barbera, and the boom from Marvel, which worked through Hanna-Barbera for their comic adaptations to the '60s versions of the cartoons, because Jack Kirby did all of the character adaptations over there. He did them for DC and for Marvel, and through a couple of studios. If you watch the old Super Friends stuff, get those DVDs, just rent them on Netflix or whatever, and they've got the making of attached to them. Check them out, because what they do is they show the making of, and they show all the Jack Kirby sketches, which are really cool, and you can look those up online if you don't want to go as far as searching it out. Um, it's your choice, but yeah, Jack did all of those character adaptations, and that's what he used to do for animation. He did all his character designs. So what you'd end up seeing was Jack's work on about 90% of all those cartoons. The Hanna-Barbera stuff, the later um, Filmation stuff, which everybody loved those cartoons. Um, the just pretty much any of the mainstream cartoons, Jack was all over them for a while there in the '60s and '70s, and he did a lot with the '80s too. But they were trying to change the look, so he uh, stepped out of a lot of that. But uh, yeah, the dude was everywhere. I mean, I'm not saying he drew every single character that but if it was from the DC Super Friends line or from the Marvel Heroes line, you can pretty much guarantee that it was Jack. The dude was just phenomenal, and he was so fast. He was everywhere, and Superboy was one of those characters that he did, to some extent anyway. I don't think he did everything, but I think he baselined, from what I understand in my research on it, he baselined the primary setup of the character, which is cool. But there's so many great classic animators out there. You really need to check them in and see for yourself and see who's out there and whatnot. But this guy had to compete against his older version of himself, Superman, in the '60s, and he had to compete with the Hanna-Barbera cartoons. So just imagine, you know, this character coming out and this cartoon coming off, and it being one of the most top-rated cartoons of its day, but yet today nobody remembers it. Everybody remembers Superman and Batman and Robin and the Super Friends, but nobody ever remembers Superboy. They don't remember the Thor cartoon either, and they don't remember things like the Flash cartoon, which used to just bust me up. When I got to see that in syndication, and I found out when I was a kid, and I found out there was a Flash cartoon, oh my gosh, I lost my marbles. But the thing was, is it looked like the typical, DC type of serial. So it was just like, man, really? But he'd have the same narration and be zipping around all over the place, and yeah. One of my favorite storylines for this is the fact that whenever it came out, one of the first episodes had this guy in this big 10-gallon hat as a villain, and they were tricking Superboy to come out to a mine, and we're going to hit him with a kryptonite that this guy had, a kryptonite nugget. And that's what he called it, the kryptonite nugget. He said, I'm going to hit him with this nugget of kryptonite. When this nugget of kryptonite fell in my lap. Oh my goodness. Funny stuff. Funny stuff. And it wasn't meant to be funny, it was meant to be dramatic. You know, at the time that was it. But yeah, something else. But those Hanna-Barbera cartoons were phenomenal because I used to love those. I'm not sure if they did Superboy or not. I'm not sure if that's the studio that actually did Superboy or not. But I really enjoyed those Hanna-Barbera cartoons a lot more than the DC, I have to admit. But, you know, and I'll be starting to draw some of those guys here pretty quick. They are on the list, folks. But I had it pointed out to me that, you know, you need to put away the cards and start drawing the comics. And I was like, okay, whatever. I'll start doing that. Seriously, though, I am working on it. I am working on that. Hopefully, very soon, we will have some results of that. Putting that rib line right there. I wanted to do my classic, you know, V line, as I call it, because I come down here and go break right this way. But, and I do it on both sides to line out the ribs. But in this case, though, young Superman doesn't have quite the chops that the older version of himself does, so we have to be more lenient with that and not overdevelop it and make him look like big adult Superman bulking out with a kid's head. That's creepy. It's like the kid's doing roids. But anyway, as you can tell, I'm having a blast today. I am just loving this so very much. Okay. You know, Kevin, that's a good one, man. Hey, thanks, Alfred. I appreciate it, man. But yeah, that's something that I have been working on. They were talking about bringing them back from the Cartoon Network, and I have been talking to a couple people that I'm not going to give out any details or anything because it's in limbo right now. But I've been talking to a couple people about possibly doing something with that character, and I've been proposing a couple of things to studios. Hopefully, we can get some feedback on it. We may be able to get something going. I know the Cartoon Network actually has those. Crunching on my cough drop from my throat. I know that the Cartoon Network has those characters in limbo right now from the Filmation stuff where they redid He-Man for a while, for a couple of seasons, and they redid the Thundercats. They have those rights right now, and I'm hoping to get with them on that and possibly produce something out of that, but I don't know because they've had 2 or 3 incarnations that they've been talking about and running with them, so I don't know what they're going to do yet. I'm not going to claim anything, but I have been talking to them, and we'll see what happens. I'm trying to find out information on it, if nothing else, as to what's going down. But I will say this. I colored that in, and I didn't want to. I will say this, though. They are working on a re-release of a new version of the Tiger Sharks and the Silverhawks. Those are in production right now. Those are actually in production over there. I found that fascinating because I love those cartoons. And I'm going to be drawing those guys in coming days here. I've got them on my list, and I'm going to be doing a couple of things that way. So you guys check it out. If you feel like it's something you want to see, there we go. I wanted to black out that side, not that side. Because I'm going to remove this line because I overdefined him a little bit. and I don't like the way it looks. There we go. That looks better. Yeah, now it doesn't look like he has a big jugular. He's got a thyroid issue. Yeah, I totally agree, man. I think it's a great concept. I've always loved those cartoons, and I wish they would come back. They're great properties. They're great properties. And the funny thing is, the moon, that if you watch the intro, go on YouTube and check out the intro. And I've got them on DVD, so I don't have to worry about it. Yeah, me too. But the fun thing about Thundar, if you go watch the intro, it's 1999 when the moon splits by the comet that flies by and yanks off the atmosphere. And I was like, whoa, because in 1980 it was like that's 20 years away. We'll all be grown up, and then when it happened, 1999 came and went, and I was just like, wow. To think back on that when I was a kid, I was just like, that's shocking. So it'll mess with your head a little bit because you get so in depth with those things. But yeah. And I've got a couple of snippets that I'll post for you guys if you're interested. I'll post them on my personal timeline, and I'll make them public so you guys can see them if you're watching from the page, just so that there's not any confusion about the artwork behind it. But I have prints from Jack where he drew pictures of the entire cast of Thundar, and they're just phenomenal. And I'll have to post them and share them with you guys if you're interested. That like I said, it's just pinup stuff that I turned into JPEG so we could do it and show them. But yeah, I love showing those off because of the fact that that's just phenomenal stuff that he did. And it was a picture, it was a random art piece because he was, like I said, he was a consulting artist on that, and it was just a fandom piece for him. So, dude's phenomenal. But anyway, okay, I think we have we have a pretty good hold on this one. And what did I do with my pen here? I really like the idea of this one here. It came off really cool. And just so you guys can see that this is actually going to be done, I'm going to step off here and start inking this right now. Just a little bit. I'm not going to erase it, so I know Jim O'Reilly's going to be freaking out. You didn't pat it with the rubber eraser, the kneaded eraser, man. Because he knows there's a lot of dust in here on this pencil line. And the reason he does that is whenever he pulls it off, dude's awesome for that. Whenever he pulls it off that way, what he's doing is he's actually yanking the dust off, the excess pencil and the graphite, so that when you do erase over it, it doesn't erase a chunk of your ink. And because the graphite falls off when you erase it. And it also smooths it out for when it's absorbing color. It'll allow the color work to stick without pencil dust smudging it. So, wise tip from good old Jim there. I normally do the same thing, but I'm at the other drafting table. I'm in the studio side, so I have my office on the other side where my main drafting table is, and my workstation. And I left my kneaded over there. I might have one in this workstation. I don't know. But just for time constraints and acts of expediency here, I'm going to just nail this real quick. Get it started. I'm not going to ink the whole thing live for you guys right now because I want to keep this reasonably short. We just had a couple of extra minutes. So if you guys have any questions or anything, let me know. And let me know what you want to know, because I've got a bunch of how-to stuff coming up, and I want to answer your questions. That's going to be a big thing for me. I love to answer questions, and I can give you a nice, short, clean answer, and I can also give you a nice, clean, and simple video for that to show that technique. I do that all the time For people that I work with, no problem. It's just I want to do it as a series so that I can, one, answer the fans' questions, and two, I can get over there and start working on the series for that, because I want to make it into a simple course that anybody can jump into and get it done ASAP. But the number one question that I get right now, which I was going to answer today, was how do you do professional comic books at the timely manner you do them? The one word I can give you there is produce. The common thread right now is to go, long term. If you're going to be drawing comic books for a company, you have to be able to produce on a monthly scale. So, think about that and get it done. The second one, believe it or not, is a simple one. What kind of tools do you use? I prefer pencils. I prefer mechanicals over wooden, just because of the fact that it's cleaner. There's more control to the lead. A lot of people will say, you have to keep. You can do it with the pencil too, the lead pencil too. Well, the thing is, you can, but there's a balance and a control with using these. I use a brand called Graph Gear, and these come from Pentel in two forms. They come in a plastic form, which is cheaper, and they come from a metal design, which you can buy for a little more at an art store. So that's my pencils. As far as inks go, I have multiple things. This one's worn out from my hand holding it so much. This is a Micron brand. This is it's actually a 3.5 millimeter, because a 3 is just too small. But everything has a half on it to give it girth for the pen, for the ink. But that's a 0.3, and for a lot of this lighter stuff, I have other pens as well. I have oh goodness, I have Copics. I have a lot of Pentel stuff that's fine line, which I actually do use because they have Indie ink in those as well, and they don't tend to fade like some pens do. Just don't use repeatiographs or ballpoints. Use the microns, because if you go using a ballpoint, it's not going to give you a smooth coat. But if you use the microns, they have a micro roller in them where the ink is thicker and they stay saturated. And a lot of my sketch stuff, when I'm doing these cards and things like this, I'm using a micron right now because that's what I had handy. But in a lot of these things, I'll just go to a precise V5, extra fine point, very generic pen from Pilot. You have to be light-handed with them though, because they will bleed. And I know a lot of people just cringed when they saw that. But understand, it's a very solid pen if you're using it for non-professional work. If you're using it for professional, I highly recommend going with the high quality Copics, or Stradler's a good one. They've got some really cool drafting pens. Micron has a huge load of them if you like to use pens over nibs. If you use nib stuff, I'm not a nib guy. I tend to bead them up, and what that means is I bend the tips. When I tap, I bend the tip, and it causes a big bead of ink to come down on the bottom. And I'm too heavy-handed for that, so I use tech pens, which are a little more forgiving than a lot of your nibs. So, a lot of people say, well, you're not a professional inker if you can't nib. I can nib. I just prefer not to, because there's a higher risk of me jacking up the artwork, and I don't want to have to do that. So, and I would rather it be done right the first time than have whiteout all over it. So that's my answer for that. But anyway, that's where we're at, folks. And as you can see, I knocked out a bunch of this. Yeah, zigs are all right. I like those. I like those all right. I just like to make sure that the one thing is whatever brand you use, Make sure you buy enough to finish the project you're working on, because the last thing you want to do is run out of ink. That's a huge one that people fall into all the time, because they think, oh, well, I'll get a pack of microns and I'll knock this out. And then halfway through, they're like, I don't have any more microns and I spent all my money. So don't do that. Make sure you buy enough ink for the project, no matter what form you use. And don't use Sharpies on professional work in mass as a general inking pen. I know a lot of people like to use Sharpies, and I do. I have them here myself. I have this one, standard fine point felt tip marker for masses for these cards, and I have another one. This is a medium, and I have an extra fine and an extra fine point as well. These are tips that you can use for these, and they're fine for pinups and stuff like that. But you don't want to use them for client work very much if it's going to be exposed to air. And the reason is because over about 2-3 years, it'll oxidize, and the ink in it will turn, the blue will dry out of it, and it will turn red, and it'll turn this burgundy color. And you want to talk about funky looking? It looks like a Wild West poster is what it looks like when it's done. Okay? So don't do that. Now, I use it on these cards because these cards specifically will hold that, and they'll hold that color a lot stronger than the pH balance is different in the paper that we use for comic sheets. So those Bristol boards don't have the right pH balance to hold the ink, and they dry out eventually because they're made to absorb, not anchor and hold. Like this is more of an anchored material because this will go through and set into the paper. And your Bristol board's more, it's more coated and smooth and compact, and the pores in it are smaller. So it'll hold it, but it only holds it on the surface, and it's to keep it from fading. But that's why a lot of guys will say, don't do that because your stuff will turn red in a couple of years. And that's a definite sign of it. If your artwork ever turns red, that's a sign that the artist used a Sharpie or a lower quality ink. Because I don't want to turn anybody off to getting these cards from people, because I've had these cards for years done in Sharpie, and they never change unless I leave them out a lot, which I don't, because I put that in, I put these cards in sleeves or frames or whatever and keep them nice and secure and clean, and I don't have to worry about that. But that's why you shouldn't let your artwork sit out either. That's another thing. Don't let your artwork oxidize, because eventually the paper is going to fall apart and rot. It's an organic material. It's going to happen. And just in case you guys didn't realize this, I've got about a third of this done. Pretty cool. But I ink pretty fast though, so I don't play around. Going to keep on this. I'm going to keep going here for about another 3 or 4 minutes and see where we end up. Now, you guys tell me, what is your favorite comic book publisher right now? What is your favorite style of comic book? I mean, I know there's been a big controversy over the genre confusion versus the medium in comics. What are you guys reading right now? Because I'm not reading a whole lot. I read specific things, and that's it. I don't read hardly any comics at all unless it's old stuff, and I do a lot of filler collections. And if I can get them in trade, I'm definitely getting them in trade first, because I want them to go on my bookshelf, not in my boxes or my cabinets. So, big difference. Okay, I'm about to do something I never do while you guys are giving me your answers here. I'm going to do something I never do. I'm going to test the reason I tap that on my finger is because it'll take whatever fuzz or anything like that from the paper off. I never do that on camera. But if you see me do that, that's why. It's to clean the tip. Because it's getting clogged up. And I may change over to this, may change over to this, I'm going to change over to this Pentel right now. And then I'll coat it with a Sharpie. See, this has a great ink flow to it, but you have to be able to control a pen, though. You know, there's a difference. I'm not a brush guy, definitely not. I will ruin a board with a brush. If I even think about using a brush, the page cringes at me. But using this Pentel's not, and these pilots are not bad. Just don't black out the whole thing because it'll leave out roller streaks, because it is a micron micro roller, and it'll fade on you. So don't do that. Use a better pen and a broader tip to ink it out and flesh it out. But if you need some line work done, it'll do simple line work for cards and pinups and things like that. And it tends to control very well. I like it. A lot of people are cringing at me. All my professional friends are like, no, don't do it, man. Why? And not to mention, whenever you do your blackening, your thick blacks, be sure to black out right over the edge of the line, because of the fact that way this doesn't tend to fade. Because once in a while, it takes a long time for this to fade out, but once in a while, these pens will, you'll get one that's like old, and it'll have a burgundy color to the ink when it dries about a year or two later. So we don't want to do that. So just use it for line work to guide the line, and then run your pen right up to the edge when you black it out, and you won't have that problem. Because this ink's solid. I've never had it fade on me personally, but I've seen and heard horror stories about it fading on you if you get an old one. That's why I'll use it for lining, because I plan to do something with these cards later. I'll use it for lining, but I won't use it for full-on blacks. I just don't do that. And see, these are a little thicker, so I want them to be able to do that. And it really does make a pretty line. Venom Hillbilly. Are those two separate titles there, Kevin? Venom Hillbilly sounds like a title within itself. That's pretty deep. I see the period there, though. So I'm going to assume that they're two separate. I'll have to check them out, man. I'm always interested in finding new books, because there's so much out there that I don't get the chance to read. But yeah, I need to, big time. Especially since I'm going to be going on, I'm going to be doing some Comic Cons in 2018. Unless something else happens, I'm going to be doing Comic Con in 2018. I have plans to do a few of those, so that'll be interesting. And see, like I said, this does a really good coverage for what it does, and it being a sketch card and me scribbling real fine and going over every other line back and forth. This inks really well for what you need to get you started. But like I said, I would not use this for a professional job, and I would not use it long term. It's just because this is what I had right at the moment. And you can get a great tip off of this too, because if you roll it out here and then drag right and snap right at the end, it'll give a great gradation. I know professional inkers that are going to be cringing when they see this. What did you do to that card? I don't know. I was just drawing. Because see, you can see the little pit holes. There's little white specks in the ink. I don't know if you guys can see that or not, but I'll get it under the light here. There's little pinholes in that. Oh yeah, I know the Hillbilly title by Eric. Yeah, Eric Powell's a cool dude. He does interesting stuff, but you don't want to grind on this too much because it'll end up wearing out the card. It'll blister the fabric of the card itself. But yeah, I'm coloring over those right there. If you see that, I'm coloring that over because it had little white potholes in it, which is what I was talking about with the back and forth motion of the pen. It doesn't give full saturation, so that's why you don't want to use this long term, because it won't cover all the black up here in this. That would be a total waste, and it would be full of potholes. So don't do that. But with this being a sketch card like this, I can do this really quick because what I'm going to do is I'm going to go over it in the final stage. I'm going to go over it with my Prismacolors and my Copics, and I'll knock that out really, really well because I re-ink all of my heavy black stuff like it's a colored spot when I color. That's a good tip for you too. If you're doing your own coloring work and you're going to hand color a project, go back over your deep blacks, your solid blacks. Go over them with a with a professional black marker and blacken out those big bulky blacks, and it'll help solidify the image. It'll make it a whole different ballgame for you. I hear that all the time. It's that one's not dark enough, or that one's too dark, or that one. What did you do to that? How did you do that? Well, it's because I over blacked it. I over inked it. But it's a little secret that I use. Not now, you put it out on the video, man. But it's a little trick of the trade that I use, and it solidifies any of those gaps that may be there that I didn't get in the original run and knocks them out. So, but anyway, with this almost being done, I'm just going to go ahead and finish this up off camera because I went over for like an extra 10 minutes instead of like the 5 that I said I would do. So I'm just going to knock this out, and I'll color it and post it very shortly for you guys, probably tomorrow, because I got a couple of things on the table I have to get done. And I'm going to give you guys a surprise sneak peek, which I don't normally do. If you're interested, I'm going to show something that's really cool. I'm going to show a page in progress for the final couple pages of Lone Rider Frontier Galaxy. This is one of the pages that I am working on. It's my script, my story. Jose did it's my layouts and my penciling, and Jose did the finished penciling in his style to get that up there and help me kick that issue out. And then I'm going to be doing number 2 full on. I'm going to be doing the second issue full on, and that's what I'm working on right now. But I'm finishing up the inks to number 1 so that I can get the coloring going. And yeah, I have like 3 pages left. And I worked on the covers yesterday and today, so to get those colored up, and I'm going to reveal that to you guys along with Catman Evolution number 4. I've got the cover going up here pretty quick, so hang tight for that, and enjoy the rest of your evening. Tomorrow we have an awesome one. Solomon Grundy's going to be on. Yeah, I'm going to be doing a classics DC Comics villain, Solomon Grundy, one of my absolute favorites. This dude is a cross between Jekyll and Hyde and Frankenstein. And he was a mobster that was killed and came back. And Really, really love this guy. This character is phenomenal. Solomon Grundy tomorrow. You guys definitely spread the word because that's going to be a cool one. And I'm probably going to be doing a bigger piece with it. So let's see what I come up with. But I'll give you guys an early posting so you know about what time I'm going to come on and you don't miss it. And thanks for hanging out with me, and we'll see you tomorrow.